I have made more videos about Jen McCabe than I care to count. And I made 2 last summer that feel like they're sort of coming around a little bit. Maybe I was kind of having premonition or something. But one of them was that I'd said, they're going to need a Patsy. And I think it's Jen McCabe. And essentially, not that she doesn't deserve it, but she has infused herself so deeply into this that it's easy to point fingers at her, right? Like the rest of them could just be like, well, it was me, it was Jen. But then I also made a video, and it's still pinned to the top of my profile, where I asked the question, like, how far would you go to protect your brother-in-law? And I think the question I need to be asking now is, how far would your brother-in-law go to protect you? Because let's face it, the last 2 days on the stand have been a disaster for Jen McCabe, but not just Jen McCabe. If I'm Brian Albert and I'm sitting at home watching this, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, she's sinking all of us. Now, and by the way, let me preface this by saying, I do honestly believe that Brian Albert played a direct part in the unaliving of John O'Keefe. I think he is one of the reasons, whatever he did to him physically, he is one of the reasons that John O'Keefe is no longer alive. I 100% believe that. He's not innocent by any means. But he suddenly has a much better story to tell. Stick with me and think through this. If I'm Brian Albert, here's what I can say. Well, I don't know why you're asking me about John O'Keefe. The last time I saw him was at the waterfall. We were all at the waterfall. I left to go home with my wife. John was still there. And then next thing I know, Jen is waking me up in the morning telling me that John O'Keefe is dead on my lawn. How would I be tied to that? I have no idea. I left the guy at the bar. It's not Brian that invited him to the party. It's not Brian that called him. It's not Brian that texted him. It's not Brian. Brian could easily walk through this life saying, I went home, there was a party at my house, I had a beer or 2, and I went to bed. And I was so drunk that I passed out, slept through all the commotion on my lawn. Keep going. Brian can say, well, and then I came down, we all sat around the dining table, and I told Officer Lenk exactly what I'm just telling you now. I had nothing to do with this. I've never changed my story. I told Lenk the same story. I told Proctor the same story. I told Tully the same story. I went to the grand jury, first trial, and now I'm going to come to the second trial. I'm going to tell the same story because I've done nothing wrong. All of those things that he's done, which are terrible things, which make him look horrifically guilty, he could explain away. Well, yeah, with Chloe, she'd bitten a couple of neighbors. We were already kind of skating on thin ice. We just knew one more bite and we were probably going to get sued. So we decided to go ahead and rehome her. The basement, well, the basement flooded. Of course I had to replace the flooring. Don't you know that it was one of the worst winters we've had in half a century? And to sell the house? Well, let's be honest with you. It was my family's home and I didn't want to sell it. But how would you feel if reporters and bloggers and fucking looky-loos were on your front lawn every day? Like we'd lost every sense of privacy and we wanted to get out of town. So we sold the house. Well, of course I exchanged my cell phone. People regularly upgrade their cell phones. I don't see what the big deal is. I saw somebody with a new one. I kind of had FOMO. I went and got the new one. Other than a couple of butt dials, there's really nothing that Brian Albert has done. He didn't call anybody. He didn't text anybody. He wasn't the one calling John O'Keefe. He wasn't the one trying to plot things out. He wasn't the one Googling in the middle of the night. In fact, if someone said, well, you're involved in this conspiracy, he'd say, what conspiracy? Because the truth is, do you see any time where he texted Jen McCabe with instructions? Here's what we're doing next. No. In fact, it was Matt McCabe that said, just say the guy never came in the house. And Albert's response was, exactly. It was Matt McCabe that said, if she pleads, this will all go away. But if she fights it, it's going to be a big deal. And Albert's like, exactly. And he's managed to keep his mouth shut, which is what he told everybody to do, but Jen McCabe couldn't. And I don't know if she is just like an over-exaggerated pick-me girl or like a severe case of fucking FOMO. I don't know what it is. But she keeps like elbowing her way right smack dab into a middle of the pile of shit. Now we know if Karen is acquitted, there isn't anybody else that's going to get arrested for this. So they don't really have to worry about that. But in the court of public opinion, they don't even have to point at Jen and go, look how bad she looks. All they have to do is continue to stay quiet because Jen makes herself look bad. Let's run through the list of all the things Jen did. Hold on. It was Jen who invited Karen and John over that night. It was Jen that tried to separate Karen and John at Waterfall to drive alone. Then it was Jen who texted and called John for instructions. Where are you? Park behind me, blah, blah, blah. It was Jen that says she kept getting up to go to the door to look for the SUV. It was Jen who then went home and Googled Haas Long to die in the snow. And it was also Jen's Apple data that showed she was up walking around all night long and never really went to bed. It was Jen who deleted all of her calls and texts that night going back and forth with John, especially the 9 times that she tried to contact him in under 20 minutes, which kind of looks like they were just looking for his cell phone. She deleted all of that. First thing in the morning when Karen calls her, Jen, for no reason whatsoever, calls Julie. Has no excuse for that. She called Julie and she called Nicole and then lied about it. It was Jen who went to go help Karen search for John. She didn't have to. She could have said, Karen, you're crazy to go out in this weather. Come on over here. Let's just try and call all of his friends. Let's call all the family. Let's get the police involved. Let's find some way to find John. We are not going to drive around in a freaking blizzard looking for him. It was Jen who called 911 and described just some guy passed out on the lawn. It was Jen who was talking to all the police. We can see it on all of the dash cams. Trying to understand the scoop and control the narrative. It was Jen who failed to go into the house and wake up her first responder brother-in-law. Even if it was true that she was doing chest compressions, she could have yelled, Carrie, go see if the door's unlocked. Go pound on the door. Get my brother-in-law down here. She could have done something, and she didn't. It was Jen who started the lie about I hit him. It was Jen that convinced Carrie to go along with it. It was Jen that lied to say that Kate McLaughlin heard it as well. And it was Jen who, after making a report to Officer Lenk about what happened, called him back and added into his report that she thought she heard Karen say she hit him. Jen was the one that claimed that both Proctor and Tully's reports were wrong, that they didn't write down everything she'd said, and there was substantial stuff missing from their reports. It was Jen who drove over to Officer Lenk's house and failed to mention that she'd stopped at Fairview along the way for 4 minutes. There's even a point where Jen is texting her sister Nicole saying, like, what's the latest? Have you heard anything? And Nicole actually even says, I don't want to discuss over text. Like, hint, hint, lady, shut your fucking mouth. And she can't. It was Jen who sat down to build a timeline with Carrie so they'd know exactly when things happened. It was Jen who asked Julie Nagel for screenshots of the text exchange she had with her brother that night so they could figure out what time Ryan Nagel was there, which was the time Karen was there. It was Jen who called Michael Proctor, the chief investigator. She called him. She's a witness, and she calls him 8 times between February 14th and March 29th for a total of 41 minutes. And Jen's story has changed from the time she told it to Lenk, to the time she told it to Proctor, to the time she told it to Tully, to the time she told the grand jury, to the time she told the first jury, and now the time she tells the second jury. All she had to do was stay quiet. And she couldn't do it. She's so wrapped up on who's doing what, who's saying what, who knows what, what's going on. She has such a desperate need to be in the middle. Nobody has to point a finger at her. All they have to do is stay quiet, because she points it at herself, because she can't stay out of it. She's working so hard to fix everything that she's breaking it even worse every single time she opens her mouth. She's sinking her whole family, and they know it. It's only a matter of time before they all stop talking to her.